Item Number SCP-3115. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-3115 is to be locked inside a standard item storage locker at Site. This locker is to be placed centrally within a containment cell, measuring 5 meters by 5 meters by 5 meters, and secured to the floor with standard steel bolts. The cell is to be lined with soundproofing material with an STC, Sound Transmission Class, rating of greater than 60. At no time should the USB of SCP-3115 be inserted into an electronic device, except for the purpose of an approved test. All tests must be approved by no fewer than 2 Level 4 personnel stationed at Site and the on-site Memetics Department. Testing has been suspended, pending post-incident review by order of the Department of Security. See Incident Report IR-3115-A for further updates. Researchers wishing to observe testing with SCP-3115 may do so only with the aid of a video feed. No audio transmissions are permitted to leave the containment chamber whilst testing is in progress, due to risk of containment breach. See Testing Log. Description: SCP-3115 is a set of standard audio headphones, consistent with those manufactured in the early 21st century. The headphones contain no external markings, and show signs of slight use. The headphone portion of SCP-3115 is plugged in, with a standard double-ended USB cable, which was present with SCP-3115 at acquisition. When connected to an electronic device via the USB connector, SCP-3115 will begin to play audio snippets from various radio stations from around the world. Testing has confirmed that the radio broadcast from SCP-3115 matches that which the particular station it is tuned to is broadcasting at the time. To date, no technology capable of receiving said signals has been found in or on SCP-3115, and its means of receiving these signals is unknown. SCP-3115's anomalous effect manifests when a human being places the headphones over his ears and connects SCP-3115's USB to any electronic device. The device's ability to transmit audio data appears irrelevant. SCP-3115's anomalous properties would manifest even if connected to a USB-compatible charger. When a human subject places SCP-3115 over his ears, a noticeable change in the audio output will occur. The subject will continue to hear broadcasts from a random radio station. However, all talking, singing, and other vocalizations will now be narrated by an unknown male-sounding entity, known as SCP-3115-A. SCP-3115-A is described as talking with a formal English accent, and has a seemingly jovial tone. SCP-3115-A will continue to narrate and sing all content broadcast from the radio station currently being broadcast by SCP-3115 in real time for approximately 15 minutes of use. SCP-3115-A will continue to narrate broadcast audio after 15 minutes of SCP-3115 being worn by a human subject. However, will now include additions to the standard broadcast. The anomalous effect of SCP-3115 ceases when the headphones are removed from the human subject, and the voice of the transmission will return to that of the DJ/artist. Addendum 3115/01. After 15 minutes have elapsed with a human subject listening to SCP-3115-A, SCP-3115-A will make additions to the standard broadcast. SCP-3115-A will at random appear to say words, phrases, and describe abstract concepts which almost without exception prove to be cognitohazardous to the human subject listening. Subjects which are exposed to the cognitohazardous vocalizations of SCP-3115-A will begin to display symptoms immediately, Symptoms increase drastically, depending on the amount of vocalization additions heard. Once the original 15 minutes have elapsed, there appears to be no correlation to the frequency of further additions. Number of additions heard. Effect on subject. 1. Subject experiences visual hallucinations of varying content and severity. A consistent theme appears to be the perception of a humanoid entity standing within the room they are currently in. Subject will perceive the audio being output by SCP-3115 as coming from this entity. Subjects universally report the early stages of a migraine at this stage. 2 to 4. Subject experiences symptoms from previous editions. Subject also report the apparent inability to remove SCP-3115 from their heads, or unplug it from the electronic device. Physical intervention at this stage in removing SCP-3115 from the head of a subject will cause the symptoms to abate within 1 hour. 3 to 5. Subject experiences symptoms from previous editions. Subject also reports seeing symbols on the walls, floor, and ceiling of an unknown language. These symbols cause extreme pain in those who observe them, and are capable of causing subjects to lose consciousness. 6+. Subjects expire within seconds of hearing a 6th edition. Prior to expiration, subjects begin to involuntarily vocalize the cognitohazardous editions they have so far heard. This is capable of spreading the cognitohazard to further individuals. Given the rapid vocalization of the subject at this stage, the propagation of the hazard is extremely fast, and further infected individuals will enter the latter stages of infection in moments. Testing Log. Test 3115-01. Subject D-88743. Procedure: D-88743 is directed to enter the containment chamber and plug SCP-3115 into a provided USB portable power pack, and remain within the room for 5 minutes. D-88743 is not directed to wear SCP-3115. Results: D-88743 follows instructions and reports faintly hearing a broadcast consistent with BBC Radio 1's morning show coming from SCP-3115. Note: D-88743 is near to SCP-3115, but is not wearing it. D-88743 disconnects SCP-3115 from the power pack and exits the chamber without incident. Analysis: Site is shielded from all outside broadcast. Audio output is later confirmed to be consistent with BBC Radio 1. However, the means in which SCP-3115 has detected the signal is unknown. Test 3115-02. Subject D-88743. Procedure: D-88743 is directed to enter the containment chamber and plug SCP-3115 into a provided USB portable power pack. D-88743 is instructed to wear SCP-3115. D-88743 is permitted to leave the containment chamber after 5 minutes as per previous test. Results: D-88743 follows instructions exactly. Upon wearing SCP-3115, D-88743 removes SCP-3115, stating surprise at hearing SCP-3115-A instead of a standard broadcast. D-88743 is instructed to place SCP-3115 on its head again, which he does without argument. After 5 minutes has elapsed, D-88743 unplugs SCP-3115, removes him from his head, and leaves the containment chamber. Analysis: Audio output matches that of WKCS-FM. D-88743 is placed in observation for 1 week, following test, but shows no negative effects. D-88743 expresses reluctance to partake in further test, claiming that the voice of SCP-3115-A unnerved him. Test 3115-03. Subject D-88743. Procedure: D-88743 is instructed to follow procedures as per Test 3115-02. However, is instructed to remain within the containment chamber, wearing SCP-3115 for 16 minutes. Results: upon passing the 15-minute mark, D-88743 stands and appears panicked. D-88743 asks research staff how that guy has been able to get into the room without using the only door, which was locked as part of testing procedures. Upon passing the 16-minute mark, D-88743 leaves the containment chamber, complaining of a headache. Analysis: D-88743 reports seeing the manifestation of SCP-3115-A. D-88743 is extremely paranoid following his test, and has shown an aversion to wearing any form of headphones again. D-88743 was treated in the medical bay for a migraine, and was placed under observation. During this time, D-88743 spoke aloud the cognitohazardous phrase he had heard from SCP-3115-A, exposing a member of medical staff to Stage 1 infection. Class A amnestics proved effective in neutralizing infection in both persons. D-88743 is terminated, as per standard D-Class protocols at the end of the month. Test 3115-04. Subject: D-4452. Procedure: D-4452 is instructed to follow procedures as per Test 3115-02. However, is instructed to remain within the containment chamber, wearing SCP-3115 until instructed otherwise. Results: D-4452 follows instructions exactly. D-4452 expresses similar symptoms to D-88743 after the 15-minute mark. At 23 minutes, 6 seconds following activation of SCP-3115, D-4452 begins convulsing in his seat and speaking unintelligibly, now believed to be in Stage 6 infection. D-4456 rapidly begins vocalizing cognitohazardous phrases before expiring. During this test, 5 research staff were observing the test using both a visual and audio feed. All 5 personnel were infected immediately with Stage 6 infection on hearing the cognitohazard. This quickly spread to security personnel stationed outside. A containment breach was declared, and all personnel removed from within earshot of infected persons. SCP-3115 was removed from D-4452's head, with the assistance of Researcher Tan, who is declared medically deaf. Post-mortem examination of infected personnel deduced the cause of death to be cardiac arrest. Analysis: this test caused a site-wide containment breach to be declared. A follow-up investigation had led to the current containment procedures. Testing to be indefinitely suspended, pending a review by the Department of Internal Security. Incident Report IR-3115-A. On the 4th of April, 2017, SCP-3115 underwent its first site-wide containment breach since containment was first established. This item had been considered relatively safe by research staff, given its manageable anomalous properties, and as such, major liberties were taken in containment of SCP-3115, resulting in less than safe conditions. At 0420 hours, on April 4th, 2017, 5 members from the Department of Research at Site-XX commenced Test 3115-04. This test was sanctioned by the Site-Memetics Department in accordance with Foundation policy, and conformed to all containment procedures hitherto established. All personnel involved were experienced researchers with a variety of backgrounds in science, and this was the 4th such test that this team had undertaken with SCP-3115. The experiment required the use of 1 D-Class personnel, designated D-4452. The aim of the test was to establish the effects of prolonged exposure to the anomalous properties of SCP-3115 on human test subjects, and the subsequent effectiveness of Class A amnestics on said subjects. Prior to this test, no test subject had been exposed to the anomalous properties of SCP-3115 for more than 16 minutes. At the time, the containment chamber was structurally sound, with soundproofing remaining at 100% effectiveness throughout the test. The cell was fitted with 3 standard HD CCTV cameras, providing a view of all angles of the room. These cameras were fitted with standard audio microphones, which could be switched on and off by the personnel in the observation booth. At the commencement of the test, all cameras and microphones were activated by the research staff to document and monitor the test as it progressed. As per standard protocols for testing on SCP-3115, all microphones were altered to only pick up loud and deliberate sound in the room, so as to prevent accidental recording of SCP-3115's anomalous audio. At 23 minutes and 6 seconds after the commencement of the test, D-4452 began exhibiting symptoms of Stage 6 infection of SCP-3115. D-4452 convulsed in an apparent epileptic fit for 1 minute and 32 seconds, falling from his chair in the process. It has been found that the research staff made several errors at the commencement of Stage 6 infection. At the time that D-4452 entered the advanced stage, audio recording was disabled on the microphones. In an attempt to communicate with D-4452 to inquire as to his well-being, and in order to gather more information of the current exposure, one of the researchers activated the microphones on the cameras. A two-way communication was then opened, which exposed all 5 personnel in the observation booth to immediate Stage 6 infection of SCP-3115. The observation booth itself was not soundproofed, as it was outside of SCP-3115's containment chamber. Due to the volume of the researchers' subsequent vocalizations, the sound permeated through the gaps in the door frame and exposed the 2 security guards stationed outside. Their vocalizations were then picked up by the CCTV cameras in the hallway, which transmitted the infection to the camera control operator in the Security Command Center. The infection then spread throughout a small portion of the facility, before the event was witnessed by a member of staff through a non-audio CCTV camera. This staff member then activated the site's containment breach alarm and established contact with security stationed outside of the containment wing. At this time, the site's computer mainframe underwent an automatic assessment of the situation and updated the site director, informing him that the containment breach did not meet the required parameters for detonation of on-site warheads. A further error in containment then occurred, whereby further security personnel entered the containment wing in order to re-establish containment, further spreading the infection to those personnel. Site records indicate that proper safe working protocols were not followed by staff at the site during this containment breach. Standard operating procedures for an auditory anomaly undergoing containment breach states that Mobile Task Force Eta-11, Savage Beast, must be informed immediately. This procedure was not followed, and MTF Eta-11 were not informed until 14 minutes and 44 seconds after the activation of the containment breach alarm. It is fortunate that Site-XX was home to personnel who are medically declared deaf. Researcher Tan, in this case, had no previous experience working with SCP-3115, and was employed in a primarily back-office role. Notably, Researcher Tan only holds Level 1 security clearance as a newer member of staff, and as such, was not authorized to be informed of the nature of SCP-3115, or even enter the containment wing. This breach of protocol is to be referred to the Department of Internal Security. Researcher Tan was able to successfully remove SCP-3115 from the head of D-4452 and eject the USB from the socket, terminating the anomalous properties of SCP-3115. Using a decibel meter, Researcher Tan then confirmed that all personnel affected by SCP-3115 had expired prior to signaling the all-clear. Standard Site operation resumed at 13.40 hours that day. The incident resulted in the following casualties: 1 D-Class personnel, 12 research personnel, 10 security personnel, 3 clerical personnel, 1 janitorial personnel. The details of this report have been forwarded to the Committee for Post-Incident Analysis and Mobile Task Force 811 for their comment and endorsement. I await their response before submitting my findings to the Department Administration in a post-incident review. Colonel H. Briggs, Incident Review Bureau, Department of Security. Addendum 3115-02. Notes on Acquisition. SCP-3115 was acquired by the Foundation in 2006, when the object was discovered sitting on the approach road to Site-19 by research staff on their way to work. A review of the CCTV footage from around Site-19 shows an unknown male walking into the middle of the approach road from out of the surrounding woodlands, before placing SCP-3115 down on a tarmac. CCTV from inside the wooded area where the male appeared does not show the male or any other traces of human life in the area, and no breaches of the outer perimeter fence were discovered. The male disappeared back into the woods moments before the personnel discovered the item. Note from Researcher Katash. An excerpt from the CCTV footage captured the acquisition of SCP-3115 was shown to D-88743 prior to its termination. He has confirmed my suspicions that the male who delivered the SCP to us matches the description of SCP-3115-A. Given that SCP-3115-A is likely a real individual, and more than likely, the creator of SCP-3115, his capture and interrogation are of high priority. We need to know this guy's motives. After all, we could have just brought a memetic weapon straight into one of our facilities. Recommend improved screening of all such deliveries in the future. Researcher Katash.